What if the things we call entertainment are actually shaping us far more than we realize, quietly forming our thoughts, our desires, and even our view of God? Today, we're talking with Nick Bendor-Samuel, who loves movies, books, and entertainment. But he has also experienced addiction and the dark spiritual forces that hides underneath some of the content that he consumed. And we're not trying to make some sort of list of what Christians can and can't watch, but it's really about asking ourselves, who am I becoming because of what I consume every single day? And is it possible that some of the stuff I'm filling my mind with isn't even harmless at all? Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to a new episode with Forholdet,
Come on.
together with Bjarte and Ludvig. Today's an English episode.
English edition.
And our guest is Nick Bendor-Samuel. Welcome.
Yes, thank you for saying my name right.
Yeah.
You did great.
Your first name is Nicholas, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
So today we will talk about entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think I would just love for us to start by hearing, like, what are your experiences with entertainment? Like, why is this a topic that you're passionate about?
Yeah. I mean, it's super broad, isn't it? There's so many things about entertainment that we engage with all the time. It's books, it's movies, it's TV. And so it kind of covers that whole spectrum. But I mean, I can speak from my own experience and, I think that's where I have the most say because it's impacted me so much. And I love this topic so much. Like, I genuinely love speaking about how God speaks through this as well as what we should avoid and things like that. But I think from my story, the biggest weight it carries is it's always to do with identity. Basically, when I was growing up, I did not fit in well with school and people at school. I was bullied. I was kind of like seen as geeky or nerdy or whatever. And it was just kind of funny because I then had my retreat or my escape, which was my books. And it wasn't really movies at that point. It wasn't really TV. But my books took me into a different world that helped me get away from a lot of the things that I experienced when I was growing up. So I would read a lot. And obviously, I think the books that impact probably millennials the most is Harry Potter. And it's a bunch of other things, but especially those books, like it made a big impression on me. I would say I grew up with a really amazing Christian family. That was my background. And they loved me very well. But, when you're bullied, you're like, I need to find something of my own. I need to go to somewhere safe, my own world. And so I would dive into these books. And even though my family was Christian and they taught me all the normal things that you would know about Jesus, my hero or the person I most looked up to was actually Harry Potter. So I would read the books and I would think, what would it be like if I could be like this? And I could do the same as this character. And, he's brave. He's also kind of bullied, but he's strong. Like, he's not really taking it as like a bullied person, but he's like, no, I'm going to stand up for myself too. He ends up being the hero, he's got glasses, like all those basic things that as a kid you're like, oh, yes, I relate so much. You're wearing glasses too. And they're even broken. That's amazing.
You like bump your head and you're like, oh my God, I have a scar. I
actually accidentally got a scar on my forehead at one point, and my brothers teased me because they were like, you did that on purpose. It's like, no, I really didn't. That's quite funny. But then I would read and listen to it all the time. Like, I would go to sleep listening to the audiobook of Harry Potter. Like, I would have it on for hours in my background. And, I never thought about it as bad. I wasn't really told that was bad. I mean, I was told, like, the general principles of don't go to bed listening to something, just go to sleep, Apart from that, it wasn't like someone told me spiritually this is bad or something. And even now, I would find it hard to say, like, my parents did the right thing to kind of guide and lead me, but as a parent myself now, it makes me wonder what would I tell a 10-year-old who's listening to this all the time? And I'm looking at it from that perspective more and more now. But I will say that journey of identity being placed so much in what I was reading and the world I was in, over time I could see how that addiction to another world, it really was something I was relying on. And I wouldn't have been able to put into words, but it was my idol. It was the thing that I looked up to the most as my salvation. I really felt that because it just made me feel good so much of the time.
Because it's interesting for me to think about this, because I had kind of the same, because we're probably the same age, and I had the kind of same journey with just Harry Potter, but it's just very different here. Because it was
old.
yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just freaking wise. I'm just like, I just know it's different. No, but for me, because I was young and I was like listening to all the books and loving it, but then I'm wondering why, or now coming into the question right away though, but like, because it's interesting, you got like so obsessed with it.
Mm-hmm.
But then for me, I loved it, but it was more like just a cool book.
Yeah.
Why for you did it make this very deep change for you?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I was really dependent on it to feel secure and safe and happy. And so in the sense of when you don't feel happy in other circumstances, what I've noticed is that the more I've become happy with myself and my life, I've read less. I've had to rely on books much less because I don't need to get away. So as I become more and more of a whole person, I've actually let go of a lot of my reading habits, not on purpose, just genuinely. I haven't felt the need to reach for that. But there's parts of me that still love that. And I actually still engage with just reading novels if I can. I'm writing a novel. So I really feel like there's something about that God wants to use, and it's amazing. But then fast forwarding in my journey, I think the thing that made it feel really like this is the enemy, this is something bad that's using this, is when I fast forward, there's a couple of moments that I've had in my life of basically getting deliverance. Like, I'm a Christian, but I believe you can have oppression from spiritual forces. And those kinds of spiritual forces come through agreement. That's what I feel and believe, is that when you make agreements with spiritual forces, they have access to you and your heart in a way.
And what is this spiritual fortress? So
I would call it demons or the demonic, that, they have access to your emotions maybe, or the way that you feel sometimes, like fear, or there's anxiety, or there's those kinds of things which come about through spiritual interference. And so I had all of these things around Harry Potter that in hindsight I could see was an open door to demonic influence. So even if I was a Christian saved, I still had influence coming in from an outside source that sort of I was dependent on. And so for me, I didn't realize necessarily that this was even the case until later, and I actually got set free from some different things. So I for example, was in a church, they were singing, and I was really meeting with God, and I was really feeling like, God, I want more of you.
How old were you then?
This was when I was older, so more like 17, I would say 17 or 18. And they're singing and worshiping over me. I understand some of these dynamics, but I don't fully understand them yet. And as they're singing, I just start feeling weak. I start feeling like nauseous. I start feeling like, oh, my whole body just wants to lie down on the floor. And so I end up kind of like lying down, and I have basically an experience which is very, very kind of like violently moving, shaking. It's not normal. It's never something I would have encountered before.
In
I would never have
been too. This was a normal meeting too.
This was a normal Christian meeting. It was because I think it was to do with connecting to God and worship and truly wanting Him. And so there was this access point of like, I want more of God. Some stuff has to go. And as that happened,
you kind of collided a little bit. Like,
yeah. As that happened, I was just, as I was shaking, I was being prayed over. Obviously, there's people around me who saw this and were then ministering to me. They were just praying for me. They were letting the worship just wash over me and minister. And after that time, there was a point where it kind of like went down. There wasn't so much of that happening anymore. I felt more normal again. And that was the point at which I felt like, okay, something happened here and I have to find out what. And up to that point, no one had really told me that there's spiritual stuff that you can interact with on that level. And I mean, I was like thinking, what's this got to do with? Like, where have I allowed this kind of activity to take place? And because it's always tied into identity, it's complicated. There's many layers. But part of it was putting my identity into the fantasy element and giving my identity away to that fictional world, an escapist reality. And then the dynamic of witchcraft and things like that, it's like, yeah, that's a component too, I'm sure.
Because how do you give it away? That word, what does that even mean in your, so people can understand that deeper?
I think it's surrendering completely to God and saying, God, I will give my love for this to you, and you can give back to me however much you want to give back to me of like, the attraction to fantasy worlds or reading or whatever, but I'm going to give it all to you. Like I actually did this when I was younger, like maybe 16. I took all my books that I had on my shelves, I put them in a plastic bag, and I just either gave them away or sold them because I loved them so much, but I wanted Jesus. And because I felt this challenge, it was just like, which do you love more? It's a really hard question. And actually, sometimes the only way that you can really answer that question for yourself is when you take action like that. It's not for everyone, but I did it. I was just like, I want you more than these books. I want you more than these experiences that I'm having. And so,
I think this is a very key for life, because I had the same experience, but I have it with film. Because I loved film. And it's funny that no one told me, and it's maybe, I don't know if many told you this either, but like that you should give it away. And like, for me, I had the experience of like a camera, and I was sensing that, okay, I need to just give away the camera. So I was like even contacting a person like, oh, I'm going to give this camera away to you to show to myself like, okay, you, God, is more important. And it's very interesting to see this dynamic in different like realms kind of. So what happened for you after you experienced this giving away kind of?
I mean, it's a process. So there were several times when I had to make that decision again and again, because you can make the decision to just go back to how you were. Honestly, like you can have a time when you're genuinely being set free of some attachments, but you still have to walk it out afterwards. And so I still had to do that. I still had to grapple with the reality of like, what am I actually giving myself away to? Like, what am I saying, this is more important than God? And I had, even after that first time of being delivered, I actually had a couple more moments like that still after. And so it is a process. It's not a one done deal. Like, I don't believe that God is going to do everything in one moment. I believe he takes us on a journey.
Yeah, like what do you think is the reason? Because that's a pattern I've seen in my life and in many other people's lives.
Yeah.
Why do you think God would operate in that way?
I think because we have a will and we choose at certain moments to let go of certain things, but it's not all together at once because we depend on it still. And so it's like, if I can put it in a specific way, it's like getting off drugs, maybe. It really is like that. Like, you have to do it in a process where, like, if you go cold turkey, so to speak, on giving up something, it can be successful, but unless...
What is cold turkey? Sorry.
People who don't know that expression. Yeah.
Oh, I'm English, but that's a very American thing to say. It's basically where you give it up completely in one go. Okay, so some people can do that, and God gives that grace for it. And for a lot of people, though, it's different and it's a process. So in that same way with drugs, you have to there's stages of letting that go so your body can adjust. And I think in the same way, our soul, it attaches a lot of meaning and identity to different things. And so we're all in progression in our lives. Our lives are stretching out in front of us, and we're growing all the time. We're changing all the time. So God could have chosen at salvation for us to just, okay, now we're going to heaven straight away. Like, what's the point of being on earth longer if we're saved? So the progress, the changes that you make bit by bit are important to Jesus. Like, he leaves us on this earth to the end of our lifetime, even after we're saved. And in the same way, you can apply that to breaking off from certain addictions, lusts, pleasures, things that you're content by. He's like taking you on a journey.
Hallo folkens, veldig kjapt, tusen takk for at du hører på podcasten vår. Hvis podcasten har gitt deg noe av verdi, så kan du hjelpe oss.
Du kan hjelpe oss med å gi 5 stjerner på Spotify, gå på YouTube, subscribe til oss der, og du følg oss på Instagram, for der legger vi ut reels og har mye content som vi har lyst til å dele med mennesker.
Nå fortsetter episoden videre. But like, say, because we're talking about entertainment, and say like the example of porn.
Yeah.
Like, would you, because I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that you could just like just take it
Do
down
a
a
little
notch.
at a time.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
I think so. So there's certain times, just to clarify it. Like
Yes.
there's a time where I think you would need to go cold turkey.
Yeah. Yes.
Fully. And I think also right now, maybe some people, including myself, I'm left with a question like specifically Harry Potter.
Yeah.
As an example, since we've talked about it, would you say no one should watch Harry Potter?
I would say ask the Holy Spirit where you're at in that process, because he knows you best. I think there are some that can watch it and not become attached to it. But I don't believe in, for example, there's some things that I think there should be a blanket rule, like a rule that covers everything, which is, for example, I would say it's never okay to watch horror. That's my rule as a whole. If I broke that, I would be breaking my conscience, so to speak. And there's moments of that in Harry Potter. So how do I interact with that? On the whole, I don't watch Harry Potter. But then if a friend puts it on, they love it, I'm like, I can be in the room. I'm not going to be bothered by it nowadays. But it's not something that I've attached my identity to anymore. So if there's a scary scene in the film, it's like, it doesn't bother me. It's okay. Even if it's a bit horrific, it's like, I'm good because my conscience is clear with God. This is not what I put myself in. So there are some gray areas where you walk with the Lord and you see what is it that you're supposed to interact with and not. For some especially that are they're inclined towards prophetic gifting. So they see in the Spirit, they encounter things in the Spirit a lot more. If you watch Harry Potter, you're much more likely to be drawn in by that kind of thing. And there are some children that are in that they've been given a gift by God since being a child, of like maybe seeing into the Spirit or encountering spiritual things. And that will impact them a lot more. And so there's others, it's less so. Some that just, it's like
me. When I read Harry Potter, watched it. But it's funny when you're saying like, as a spirit person, you can easier see in the Spirit and some people cannot. That's an interesting way to like, maybe that's why for me it didn't interact for me too much.
Yeah.
But then another person, as you say.
It's different for every person where that point of weakness is, because it's dependent on your giftings and your abilities. And so warfare, watching blood and gore on the screen, I find it hard. It's not impossible. I watched The Passion. That was difficult, but still, it's okay to watch.
That's real, you know.
But it's really real. I would say even The Passion, it's like if you...
The Passion of Christ.
The Passion of Christ as a movie, yes. If you struggle with that, it's hard to watch that. But then it's not a blanket statement to say that all violence should just never be on any movie. There's a story being told with the violence. It's not self-gratuitous. It's not done for the sake of just violence, whereas there are TV shows which is for just the sake of violence. And so I think that's why the Holy Spirit is involved in making those decisions, because there's real wisdom that you need to be able to discern.
Yeah, and like you're talking about the importance of discerning for yourself, and that it might look different because like, say, let's just stay with the Harry Potter films. It's the first, because I've watched all of them, and the first films are quite feel good. True. Like they're quite
for kids.
Or the second one was terrifying.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know about you.
But but
number 3 changes.
It's like a point where like, okay, now it's a little bit different. You know, it gets darker and everything.
Yeah.
And I guess also a question of mine would be this thing of, if someone has been watching horror movies and they haven't thought about the consequences, and now they're listening to this and they're like, okay, so there are some spiritual forces here that I haven't really been considering. What do you kind of, because maybe someone would be like, oh, do I have demons now? Am I oppressed without knowing?
Right.
Like how...
Yeah.
What are your thoughts
this
about
kind
this?
Of podcast just had something.
That's the thing. Well, the thing is, it depends on your relationship to Jesus. And what I would say is that you always trust him to take you through the journey, but you always have to be willing to surrender everything. And so that's the most difficult part. It's like no matter what season of life, you always have to be ready to surrender everything to Jesus. So if you're not ready to do that for anything in your life, and good things too, I think that's where Job comes in. It's like he lost all his family and children, And that was allowed to happen. And it's kind of like, who are you without even the things that you love that are good, let alone the things that are evil that you shouldn't be interacting with in the first place? But like, regardless, you should say, my life as a Christian means I'm surrendered completely to God. And so that will be a journey and a process to reveal what that looks like. And then if there's anything that needs to go away, God will do it. Yeah. I think it's just saying, I trust you for the journey and the process. So there'll be moments, if you say, Lord, if there's anything of that in me, I don't want it, I want more of you, he'll bring you to someone on a Sunday and they'll be like, can I pray for you? And then you'll be like, sure. And they'll pray for you and you'll then feel lighter or something. You know, it's like, it doesn't have to be intense or violent or whatever, but it's at least this sense of, I'm aware that my life as a whole should be surrendered 100%. Yeah.
And you also mentioned this thing of like, how do you know when it gets too much? Yeah. Like, and we, because I recently actually had a conversation with you about a show that I used to watch, and it's a very famous Japanese cartoon called, like, an anime called Naruto. Yeah. And a lot of boys my age, they watched it. If
it's
you've
like
watched anime, yeah, you've heard about Naruto. And in this show, there's like
I always have to scream Naruto when I hear it. I feel like it's just me. Yeah.
But they, you know, it's so many elements of demonic stuff. Like the whole thing.
That's
and you haven't watched Naruto?
No.
Yourself? But,
No,
but I kind of described some aspects of it to you. Like how the whole thing about this character Naruto is that when he was a baby, they sealed like this demon inside of him.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Oh yeah, that's
and he, as he grows up, he starts to draw power from the demon, and like he fights the bad guys, and he is the hero character. But it's this whole element of the spiritual, and like they're summoning these different creatures. And I guess like my question would kind of be how. Because you said when you're watching Harry Potter, you need to ask God, and there are some times where, okay, it crosses the line. But when are there some things that, like, okay, you need to see where you're at, you need to ask the Lord for wisdom, and if it's okay, then it's okay. But when does it reach a point where, like, okay, that's a big no, default no? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think the word comes in then as the standard. And so there's the element of choice for yourself, which is true, walking with the Holy Spirit in your own journey. And then there's the hard no's. And those hard no's, sex,
but
what else is there?
Can you skip the if it's
like porn, you mean?
Yeah, porn, for example, I mean.
But if you skip all the porn scenes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think there's an element where the story, when it's relying on, like, there's movies where I just skip a section. That makes sense. It doesn't affect the story as a whole. But in every story, there is a point being made, and there is a sense of a direction it's going as a whole. If it's meaningless, it's for its own sake, or it's taking you to a moral of the story which is sinful, like, let's say it's a rom-com, someone cheats on their husband, but it's the one that they've known since they were 16, and they were in love, and they never had a chance to get together, and then there's a sex scene. You know, it's like, okay, I've seen other movies where the moral of the story is you stay with your husband, you know, and there's a sex scene. It's like they both contain similar things, but there's always a difference to the point of the story. What I'll say is that for Naruto, for a lot of things in anime, it's because it's tied into Japanese culture and religion and all those things, it's inherently going to be not moralistic in its values. It's going to be focused on spectacle, on self-fulfillment and indulgency. I don't know how to say that. But it's going to be other things, other values. We have quite an automatically Christian worldview in the West, which is good and bad because sometimes people don't think for themselves either. But there are some elements that we've kind of stuck to, which is faithfulness to your husband is good, for example. But then you have elements in Japanese culture which they've never had made Christian. So the idea of demons being good or bad, but they're demons, it's like they've never had the differentiation in their religion or in their culture to say there's a difference. We, in the West, we understand the concept of there's angels and there's demons. You can believe in them or not, but there's a concept of one is good, one is bad, one is on the side of God, one is not. And then if you have in Japanese culture, well, they're all spirits. So some are good, some are bad, but you can interact with both. And basically you try to avoid the bad ones, but when you're not believing in Jesus, all those spirits you interact with are demonic then. Like you can have angelic visitations, sure. But if as a culture you're not focused on God in any way, not really, then everything demonic is just part of things. And so Naruto starting a story with someone who's a baby sealed with a demon, and it's like, okay, I'm fighting bad guys though. But in their culture, they haven't differentiated to say, well, that demon is also evil. It's like they don't know what the other option is. That's all they know.
I think I started to know, it's been a couple of years since I watched it, because I did start to be like, I'm actually not too sure about this show. It makes me feel a little bit like, not like weird in the sense of like very, very spiritual, but this thing of like, oh, I see there's so much talk about the demons, there's so many things, but one part of my brain would be like, okay, but I recognize it and I rebuke it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then I would keep on watching because I was aware at least, you know what I mean? I didn't let it. Yeah. My thought pattern was that, okay, I see it. I'm not going to let it affect me. But I guess like how much can I choose to be affected? Okay, even though I recognized it, I can say like, okay, I see it. So therefore, I'm not affected by it. What do you think the dynamic is there?
I think that's a hard one because I think because it's tailored a little bit to each person, what affects you, it's hard to say what exactly that is apart from just being in a relationship to God. So you being able to watch something and saying it doesn't affect me though, or it doesn't have my heart, then I would ask, well, how often are you watching it? And how much do you look forward to watching it? How much do you think about it outside of watching it? You know, those will tell me the things about your heart that I want to know, really. Like, how attached are you?
Because is it kind of like the love? I feel like when you told your story, it's often like how much love you have for it, like against like how much love you have for God. Is that like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
is that kind of a thing?
It's literally God and idols again. Like you, and in this case, sometimes it's literal because gods, in this sense, demons or spirits versus God. It's like there's a very literal comparison in that in the Bible all the time. And I think it's one of those things that as Christians, we don't necessarily think of the end result of what some of this stuff has done for people. Like in the end, for those that don't believe in God, people who've watched Naruto might have started with that, gone on to something else, gone on to something else. And then you have the spiritual consequences over that for a nation. You have super high suicide rates. You have loneliness. You have all these things, which if you're saying that's detached from the culture, which is valuing all this kind of entertainment, that's really, I think that's a bit blind to say they're unrelated. I can't say where everything is connected always, but I can say that if you know that about a show, that it's taken, you know, a whole culture in a certain direction. And it's not just Naruto, it's like a whole culture of like what anime represents. If that's what's driving a nation towards all those negative things, it's like, yeah, I don't want to associate with that. Not really.
But I do think there's so many things in Norway that seems harmless, and we're making so many shows in our region. And I think just this thing of like, you spend so much time watching entertainment. There's always this like comfort in turning on the TV and there's a new show of Kompani Lauritzen or like, you know, and people, so many Norwegians talk about it. Same thing like if you watch soccer, you will get along with soccer people because you can talk about the game that was last night and you have a connection. And I think, again, in Norway, we're so driven to stay up to date with like Skal vi danse, The Voice. Again, these aren't bad things at its core, but I'm just like, are we being put in these like hamster wheels a little bit?
Yeah.
What
when
are your
is
thoughts
it bad in a way?
Yeah.
That's the question probably.
Because like the show itself, like no sex scenes, no demonic stuff.
Fixing some planks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everything is just always about the heart being tied to some kind of identity. Like when you attach yourself to Jesus, you will start seeing things the way he sees it and adjust accordingly. And so in a way, you don't need to get delivered from, of course you don't need to get delivered from demons if you're watching a renovation show. But as in,
reservation,
it doesn't have to be that.
Demon, yeah.
But it's what God cares about most is not that you're necessarily even set free from demons. It's that your heart is given to him completely. And that means everything comes under his scope. So whatever you watch and give yourself to in terms of time, affection, energy, those things, there's things that can be put in their proper place, right? There's relaxation, which can come in and bless you. And for every person, there's some things which you're like, I just enjoy this. I enjoy board games. I really do. But if I'm like living for board games and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the next one and it's going to be incredible, it's going to be amazing, but that's all you think about. Yeah. It's like, yeah, there's something there. You might want to just adjust a little bit. And that's usually what it takes is small adjustments and awareness of yourself to come back to the Lord about it.
Because did you have other things too than Harry Potter that you had experience like that kind of in through your life?
I think... Yes, for sure. I've attached a lot of identity to things that it's so broad in a way. And so every person has had to experience their different difficulties, challenges in life, whatever it looks like. I think for me, apart from books, of course, it extends into TV shows, movies, but it extends into relationships too. Who you choose to be friends with. Let's say I love fantasy. I find someone else who loves fantasy. We create a connection over that. And then we're so closely connected because of that. And we relate in a different way to maybe my other friends and all of that. I think in those kinds of cases as well, it's like everything is impacted and tied together. So even bringing that into the Lordship of Jesus, like, is it good that you're both in this together in such a deep way? Like, you might want to be aware of this as like a weak point. Because I believe that the things that you're weak with, you will find others usually that have the same weaknesses and kind of feed each other a little bit on those things.
What do you talk about weaknesses? And for you, it was just love.
Temptations, addictions, things that you're overusing, you will usually find others to do that with. And
then you feel it's more okay, kind of probably too.
You relate and you're building a relationship on something. You're at least building a relationship. That's quite often what people are doing in those kinds of settings is they just want people and they don't know where else to get it.
Because relationship in itself is not bad.
No,
but then
exactly.
That's just saying like...
But it's dependent on this one thing, which is both of you are addicted to something.
So what about sports? Like, hey, you make friends on the soccer field and you talk about soccer and...
Yeah, it depends. What would you call an obsession? Where do you draw the line with a healthy pastime and truly being obsessed? You know, there is a difference. And I think sometimes it's hard to see for yourself unless you have other people. I think one of the best pieces of advice I could give to someone who's not sure is to get married.
I was just going to say, get a wife. They're going to just tell you.
They'll tell you.
That's not a joke, yeah.
Usually you marry someone who maybe has a different set of weaknesses than you, typically. And that's attractive to you because it's a different person than you. But then when you get married, you realize, oh, okay.
They tell
we have different things that we like and enjoy. But then because of that, you can also speak into each other better. So it shapes you and forms you in a good way. You can have that with a best friend too. It doesn't have to be that you get married to do that. But at least when you get married, you give someone else permission to speak into your life. So if you're not married, you give someone else permission. You say, you have access to me. If I have something here that's weak, that's, I have a weakness for. Look into that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like mentor and stuff too is probably helpful,
Mentors,
of course.
So good. Close friendships that will keep you, accountable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because then they can give you just a question, like, why are you talking so much about this? And then you can unfold.
Yeah. I mean, I'm being convicted even as I'm talking. I'm like, oh yeah, board games, Lord. Sorry. I should be remembering this for myself after this.
Yeah, but I mean, like, as we're talking, I'm thinking, like, it's so hard to just know for sure always. Like we've mentioned, like, you're watching a show and you're like, oh, what is this? Is it affecting me? And I also don't want to, like, be too legalistic about things. And because I went to a Christian private school, and you have those parents and families and kids who I would say would just actually almost like live in fear. And so like, where because I remember Pokemon cards were it was a huge thing.
Thinking the same.
And Bakugan, I don't know if you remember that, but basically some kids were like, oh no, my parents say Pokemon is demonic. And you shouldn't do it as well. And then even like the parents had to talk together, like to figure out, and okay, you believe that, I will let my kid play Pokemon cards, whatever. But yeah, I hate the word balance, but how do you discern again, like to not live out of fear or become too legalistic?
Yeah. I think when specifically for children, I will say there is a role of the parent to be a guardian for certain things. You don't show a 2-year-old a horror movie. There's a reason for that. You don't show them sex and violence on TV. There's a reason for that. So when it comes to adjusting appropriately for age, I think there is a guardianship responsibility for a parent to make sure that at the right age, certain things are given more will and choice in the matter. A child that's 2 isn't going to be given a choice if you're pulling them away from a train. They're not going to be given that choice. They're given a very strict boundary line. Same thing with entertainment. There are some things you have a very strict boundary line. Now, as the kid gets older, I only have a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old right now. I can imagine those lines will change. There'll be more permission given for certain things as they mature. The point of disagreement is at what point you allow that. When do you allow that kind of change? When do you open things up more for a child? Is it ever right to open them up to certain things? So Pokemon, I would say, I grew up as well watching Pokemon, loving it, getting cards. I wasn't very impacted. I loved it. I thought it was really fun. But I remember a couple of episodes on Pokemon that were very specifically demonic. One was the psychic gym leader. And there's this whole thing about a haunted tower and all these different things. Like dead Pokemon and their ghosts, And that instilled, even then, a sense of fear around that. And the psychic gym leader was like, I don't know, there was something about a little girl spirit or something going on. And, that it was just in a Pokemon episode. It's a child's thing. So what I'd say is that, yes, there are some episodes it's nothing to do with that. You don't have to worry about that. But if you're not aware as a parent that that's also in there, it's your responsibility to know and to actually say, okay, watch this episode. You're not going to watch this one though. Like be involved enough in your kids' lives that you know what they're actually ingesting. Because there's some things that are going to still be, absolutely not. You're not going to look at that at this point. When they're 13, it's a bit different. But if they're 5, 6, 7, you start making those decisions. And it's important to know, like, when do you start letting them?
Because the conversation can so quickly move to just like, this is the demonic. And I don't know if like, would you tell your kids like, this is demonic? And I guess if you don't give them more context, I just think it's important to keep in mind. And And another thought I was thinking about the show Chosen. It's the show about Jesus.
Christian show. Mm.
And how I think that's an awesome show. And also I think it's important that people don't replace the Bible with a show like that. Sure. Because again, we've talked about like things that are dark, demonic, horror, spirits and stuff, and then like this Chosen is like the complete opposite side. Like it's so good. But I've heard people even say like, oh, when I'm praying, I'm seeing the Jesus character, the actor in my head, and it's almost like, do you have any thoughts about how to use discernment with a show like The Chosen?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, anything that's not Jesus is going to be, if you give your heart completely to something that isn't Jesus, it's going to be an idol. So even The Chosen could be an idol for some. If you're imagining Jesus, the actor who plays Jesus from The Chosen, and you're imagining him as Jesus in your brain, I don't think that's necessarily wrong, but I think if it's to do with attaching your affection to a person who's real, then sure, that's true. But I think there's qualities of imagination that God uses. There's aspects of that he uses for his glory and his purposes. And I don't know, maybe that's okay that someone imagines someone else's face because they just need a face. They just need to see Jesus in something. And it's okay. I don't think it's so legalistic as that, but it's all dependent on your heart. When you're watching The Chosen, are you like, that's Jesus to me? Obviously that's an idol then. But I think then you do have to use discernment for how far you take something. I think at different points in my life, the Lord has maybe used the picture of a lion, and do I worship Aslan from Narnia? No, but it's helpful imagery for me to connect to the Lord in a different way than I normally would. It's imagery that helps build my faith rather than become a distraction or an idol. If I was reading Narnia books and maybe if I was calling God Aslan, then it's like,
God, I mean Aslan.
Might want to rethink that. Actually, this is interesting with AI. At one point, to just try it out, I wrote down a situation I was in and I said, please respond with the voice of Aslan from Narnia. I said, say it in a way that Aslan would say it. And it actually really touched my heart. And I was like, oh no, this is not good. This is not good. Because it was genuinely like, there's many ways that you can see how AI would go. But if it became a sort of God, I wouldn't be surprised. Because it's so easy to just put in a request, a question, a fear, get something back, and you get it in the way that you want it, exactly the way you want it. Which is interesting then the way God interacts with us, which is on his terms. If he wants to speak something, he'll speak something, but he's not a lottery ticket that you can, lottery ticket? What am I saying?
Like a
vending machine.
Huh?
Like a vending machine.
That was it. Yeah. Don't know why I said lottery. A vending machine. He's not that. It's on his terms that he speaks. He actually is the one taking the initiative. But with AI, yeah.
And the Bible speaks about it as well. To what are you filling your heart with? And again, I'm not saying that you cannot watch people who renovate houses.
Yeah.
But
it's bad.
I would again just with everything that you watch. I guess that's something that I'm trying to learn more and more about. Like how am I making myself aware of the ways this can affect me, my view on things. Like I was very into like earning money, making money before. I wanted to become super rich, and so many young people these days are making these videos on YouTube, social media, Instagram, where you see people like my age making millions, driving these like nice cars and everything. And I noticed that, like I did. You mentioned that it's often a journey, and that's been the case for me as well. Because I had like one big moment where I was like letting go of a lot of those things. And then time would pass, and I would start to watch some more like videos about business people and how they would make money. And then I had a mentor, and we were talking, and he kind of, we got into the topic of watching these people making business videos. It's like the content itself it's not bad, but what's the spirit behind watching? Why is it something in me that wants to spend so much time hearing about these things? And I think, and I would notice, like, if I would go to fin.no, and I would look at like expensive cars just because I enjoyed it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with an expensive car, but again, it's the heart. That's what we're coming back to all the time, and to use some discernment. And it's interesting, if you would pick up your phone right now and go to Instagram, watch 20 reels, I could tell a lot about your heart. Just watching the first 20 videos that comes up on your social media, that will say a lot about you. And I think it's so important to realize, like, if you only care about like I don't watch horror movies, or I don't watch porn, then I'm good. But no, you should check your heart a little bit.
Are you okay if you scroll 20 times and you see like, okay, this is something that is good for you, or do you see like actually something in there that you're like,
The degree to which you shift your life around like your phone, it says a lot about you. And I think I've felt convicted so often that recently I just came to a conclusion, I have to change how I interact with my phone, because it is the gateway to all these different things. I would find myself regularly, I don't know why, it was just like two things I would look up all the time. One was Marvel entertainment, just seeing if there's trailers, seeing if there's anything new, seeing if there's news about actors, whatever it was. It didn't matter. If it was related to Marvel, I would want to look it up. And then Pokemon, which is really random because we spoke about Pokemon earlier on. I have a so-so relationship with Pokemon in my childhood, but for some reason there was some things about what's the newest game, have they made it, what's the news, the really stupid stuff of like, what do the evolutions look like, what do people predict they're going to look like. It's so stupid, but like truly there's something about spiritual activity as well in this, and what wants your mind to be distracted, and it doesn't really matter what it is. It will just be kind of like a bonus for, I would say, the enemy to kind of get you distracted enough that you just don't have time spent on anything else. Like you don't have time spent on maybe prayer, maybe reading the Bible, whatever it is. If your mind is just engaged elsewhere, as long as you got your mind in the clouds somewhere else and you're not engaging with actually what matters, that's kind of like a win for the enemy. And so what I feel like God wants to do is draw us in with his affection, his love, and his compassion, all of that, into repentance, into saying, God, I'm so sorry. Like, and I've had to take some actions with my phone now. I've like had to remove YouTube, Safari, make it black and white. And I did that recently because I just felt like I'm never going to do this unless I take real action on this. I have to do something. And when I've seen other people do this in the past, I thought, well, you're quite extreme. It seems like anyone who's read John Mark Comer has had like 3 months of a black and white screen, and that's it, you know? It's like, okay, that was weird. Maybe that was maybe a cool fad that people went through. But I genuinely feel now I'm at the point where it's like, no more. I don't want that. I have to act on it. So, yeah.
For me, it is fun to see the concept of like, wait, like purpose in life kind of is what we're talking about. Like seems like something is pushing on into like something that doesn't have purpose in a way. but like it's entertaining for us, like memories from before. Like Marvel, I'm kind of like similar. Like I just love it because it was so they did something good for some years ago, and now it kind of like always attached to it. And the same Pokemon, it's like, you love it when it's small, and you're like, wait, that's like so expensive, those packs, or so fun that they got this one card. But I can see that it's interesting with this, like, wait, it pulls you away because it's trying to take away that is something purpose in your life that you maybe don't know about too much, but it is giving life that it try to take you away. But then my question is like, what is it push you away from something, but what do you feel like is gonna give life then?
Yeah, I literally have a list of things that I made of things that are dead weights. And I have it in my Bible, like a little piece of paper that reminds me every now and then what actually gives life versus what I've decided brings death.
Interesting. Yes, that's amazing.
So I wrote these things, and I then wrote the comparison between living thoughts and dead thoughts. Living thoughts, I wrote all the things that you find in Philippians 4:8, and it's anything that's true, honorable, just, pure, lovely, commendable, excellent, praiseworthy. And then I've tried to flip it on the opposite side and say, this is what I don't want. Anything that's false, dishonorable, unjust, filthy, ugly, avoidable, bad quality, unworthy. That's then what's on the opposite side. It kind of helps to compare. And then what are the life-giving things on one side that I want to do more? I'm not saying I'm perfect. I really am trying to learn, but I'm not no one is fully there.
Guys, I'm not perfect, okay?
I'm not perfect.
We got it, Nick.
Okay. Someone's going to ask me, but you said you did this. Yeah. Life-giving things, exercise, creative works like painting, writing, reading, those life-giving things, interactions, relationships, games. And then the heavy things, the things that are dead weights that I don't want to live with. It's like certain shows and films. It's horror, dark fantasy. It's even sometimes Lord of the Rings if I'm overly indulgent in, like there was a time when I was listening to The Silmarillion, the audiobook. That's probably my favorite book as a fantasy book. But I would listen to that even, just whenever I had time, I would listen to The Silmarillion because I loved it so much.
But you would listen to it several times? Like,
yeah. It's so long, right?
Yeah.
But I love that stuff. And so I had to say, this begins to become an idol for me now. And I have to set it aside as an idol for a time. I can interact with it, but I know that if I give in too much, I will go down this rabbit hole, completely distracting me from things. So even that, and then I'll say like, even culture wars, like the stuff that you find online of liberals versus conservatives and seeing all that interaction, like that's kind of entertainment. You watch the elections and you want to get out popcorn because you're like, wow, this is so fun. Like, what are they going to do next? Wow, that's crazy. What are they going to do? At least American politics. English politics doesn't feel that entertaining. But yeah. So even refining those outlets, like it doesn't mean you never watch the news or something, but it means what is it you're drawing, ironically, not life. Like, you're drawing something from it.
Yeah, because for me, I think the very important piece here is to understand, like, okay, it is this bad, but then like, to figure out how to go forward will be like, you have to also open your eyes for like, why is this good things good? Like, for me, it's interesting when you're saying like you're reading the book, and every time you have time, you like read the book, So then for me, I can see that when it's too much, it's like you could actually have a conversation with your wife, but you read the book instead. And I can see that as kind of like and I'm wondering, is it more stuff like that you see like, okay, it's something like when it's too much, but you can actually have this instead. Because for me in my life, I see like when I change is when I see a truth and it's like imprinted in my heart, and I know when it's said. I'm like, oh, that's good. That's what I want.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those life-giving things, it depends on each person what that is, but relationships are usually the core of what is life-giving. And often what we do instead of relationship is quite often what becomes our downfall, because really everyone wants to connect with someone, actually, whether it's friendships, your wife, or whatever it is. But you have a lot of wounds maybe from relationships in the past. So what you do is you rely on other things that give you the idea of relationships. So I realized that for a long time I had been looking at TV shows certain TV shows would give me that fulfillment because I was watching relationships on a screen and people on a screen. So when I was alone, before I got married, if I had a laptop open with someone talking, I felt better. But my real desire is proper relationship. But it's like porn because you feel like there's no risk involved with watching porn. You're not going to get rejected. You're not going to have the sense of distance from a person. You feel like I'm interacting with some kind of people. Same with anything else. Like you're watching YouTube interviews, podcasts, whatever it looks like. Hello.
Don't watch us.
But then it's that reliance on something else to fulfill what it is you really want. It's saying, and the ultimate fulfillment is God. But then the way we interact with people is also, it's like love God, love your neighbor. They're linked. If you have good relationship with the Lord, you usually might have good relationship with people, I would say. In the sense like those two are so tied together, one impacts the other quite often. And so, yeah.
I think that's a huge one.
Yeah. God is so honoring. Like he will allow you to make the decisions you want to make fully. Like he will not manipulate you to do what he wants you to do. And so in the end, because of that, if you choose repetitively to do something that you know breaks your conscience with the Lord, it's like he'll allow you to do it. I feel like he gives opportunities to speak into those things. But if we continually disobey, it does end up becoming that we just mute him. And that's a dangerous place to be, actually. Like, it's kind of like food in general, where you have a choice between junk food or healthy food. Junk food, you can have for a while. It's not healthy, but if you constantly have it again and again, you get worse and worse. You weaken and weaken, and your body isn't adjusting well. And then eventually you die. But it's a process to get there. I think the same thing with entertainment. There's a point at which I feel if we disobey the Lord multiple times, constantly, and we just keep on eating the junk food, I think in the same way that you ingest food, if you keep on ingesting junk food, you get worse and worse health-wise, and then you die. In the same way, if you keep on ingesting stuff that's bad for your soul, I think there's a part of you that can die, actually. I don't know what people think about losing their salvation, but I think eventually if you disobey the Lord that many times when he is trying to speak to you, I think there can be a point where you do lose your salvation because you are fully just living separated from God's will. You're saying, I don't want your will, not in this area of my life. And I think that's actually something Christians need to test, because we think the entertainment aspect, it's fine. It depends on your theology of sanctification. If you feel like salvation is the main thing, then you'll just stay saved and think that's fine. If you believe in sanctification, which is the progress of like coming closer and closer to God, letting go of more and more things unto him, and then, being united with him, it depends what you think about that. You'll do things differently in your life according to that.
I've this week, like you mentioned that you've turned off social media on your phone. Me and my wife, we also agreed to do like the same thing this week, and it's so interesting to notice how fast I can open Instagram blindfolded, because I know swipe up, face scan, 2 swipes to the right,
yeah,
there it is. And it's crazy, every like small situations, like you're in the elevator, you have like 5 seconds of load time for the internet, and you find your Instagram. It's been interesting to be confronted with how much I seek social media. And but I just, again, I want to focus on my aim. Like, okay, Lord, I want to try my best to aim. My muscle memory, sometimes I even don't have my phone in my pocket and I can feel the vibration, like a phantom vibration. Because
right.
My nerve system, and I think some people can like, they know what I mean.
I think the thing to remember is that, in terms of our hearts being the primary thing, let's say I get rid of one addiction. Quite often I will rely on another instead to fill my time.
Good point.
That is kind of what ends up happening quite often. But I would say it's also good to not be discouraged by that, because I think shifting where the addiction is, even then, is kind of progress, because you've already broken off something in a connection to something, and not to be discouraged that, oh, but I'm picking this up now. It's like, no, but keep walking forward. It's okay. Just keep walking towards the aim, like you're saying. Like even making that effort to remove Instagram. If you start looking at something else as like your kind of filler for the for the time on the toilet, it's like, okay, let me continue, Lord, with my heart, because it's not legalism. Like just because it's not dependent on just our actions. Like, if it's purely dependent on our actions, then if we decide we won't sin, then that's it. Okay, we're never going to sin again. It's like, no, it's not that. It's dependent on relationship and faith to God. That's how we progress. It's not just up to us. Like me making the decision to remove certain things from my phone is one thing, but it would mean nothing if it's not out of relationship to God, because my heart hasn't been changed even from just doing that.
I remember deleting Instagram, and then I would do YouTube Shorts instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and so it's interesting because you realize, Instagram is not the problem. I'm the problem.
Right.
And my mind is always trying to. It's like water always finds a way. Like through the smallest crack, it would always choose the way of least resistance. Yeah. Same thing. I'm so stupid sometimes because, and it's interesting to realize it and again not stop trying. Yeah. Because I could go completely down in like kjelleren, in the basement, and be like, oh God, it's just pointless. I'm so corrupted. I'm always trying to find the next thing. But work on that next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where people get most discouraged, is that they realize but I'm trying, but I'm still not succeeding in fully letting go. And the point is not necessarily to just let go of the world. That's not the point necessarily. The point is to be so connected to God that the world feels like it doesn't carry any kind of significance compared to God. Like it doesn't, everything, what was it Paul says? That anything he's ever done in this world is like rags to God, or everything else just fades away when you're just with God. And it's not like you try to let go of those things, it just fades away. The importance of those things fades away. And so it's not purely that we are doing it to ourselves. You can have certain boundaries that are helpful, but it's always going to come back to, actually, my focus is on God. He's the one who makes those things feel less important. It's not that, okay, I've done really well, A, B, and C, and now I'm good, I'm sanctified. It's like, no, you're still you, but your love for God means that those things, that's what changes you, really. The fear of the Lord and love for the Lord, both, actually. Love for the Lord you can have and still maintain a lot of things in your life that are negative or sinful, but combine it with the fear of the Lord, that's powerful. The fear of the Lord makes you aware of his holiness and his nature as being uncompromising. He is who he is. And if I have that fear, reverence, awe for the Lord, combined with my love for him, that will bring the most change.
And I feel like you kind of also sensing like what's life-giving, and that's actually attractive, and what's not life-giving is just not giving. So then you will naturally kind of step a little bit more away from it.
To not be vague about what it means to stay connected to God, it looks like being able to spend moments in the day, whenever it is, to spend time with Jesus. It doesn't have to be a really structured prayer time necessarily, but you read the words, you wait on the Lord, which is just sometimes waiting in silence to hear him speak. And you engage with him that way. You tell him what you're thinking and feeling, and you ask him questions. That's engaging with the Lord. And then when you're watching something, it's funny that you say, like, do you need to ask God really about this show? It's like, actually, most of the time, it's not even a question that I would ask God. Quite often, it's a natural sense of, nah, not this one. And it's not necessarily given a question, even.
You're just with him in a way.
Yeah,
so he's
just
there.
being with him helps dictate what you think is normal. And so if you always have to ask God, is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay? I would say there's a fear about God actually being present with you. like as in him not being with you. And so you feel like you always have to ask. That actually, when you actually are connecting with God, that sense of security will settle so that you don't feel like you always have to ask him for all the decisions in your life, but you're naturally settling into the rhythm of, this is his personality. This is becoming my personality more and more. This is becoming my character. These are becoming my choices. They're just starting to reflect his. So it doesn't become legalistic. It's just a question of connection with him.
Like, I really feel like this is just fun to go deeper and get like, kind of like, in a way, settle your heart of like, have you done, like helping me personally too. Like, wait, do I have some choices here? And I think this conversation really helped me to be like, yes, it is something to remember that God is with us and remember to have the check. And it's fun for me now. I have some thoughts about like, yeah, how I'm watching like some movies with my kids and stuff, and I'll be like, it's important to be like aware here. And I feel like this talk here have just made me more aware. And I feel that's the important piece. And Nick is just so good at like, telling, and your life experience too just makes us understand like, it is something that can catch us almost. Not catch us, but like it can take over. But I also see it as a very like, it's just different levels and everyone have the level and you need to be aware of it.
So good, Nick. Do you have any like final challenge, word, or call to action for anyone who's listening and ourselves as well?
Yeah. I think go back to Jesus in a moment of quiet and just let him remind you of things that he will bring up. So just allow him to bring things up. Honestly, it's not hard to hear the Lord on this, because usually you'll have a conviction in the back of your brain already that you're breaking already. So usually it's not even that the Holy Spirit has to do a lot of work to convict you of something. It's usually there, but you're kind of like, but it's okay. And you don't examine it. But what I'm saying is then go back, be with the Lord, examine those convictions again. Ask the Holy Spirit, is this just me? Is this you? Because usually you'll have something, it'll pop up in your brain. When we're having this conversation, I'll have already imagined some different things. I'm like, okay, I got to check my heart on that. And it comes up naturally. It's supposed to be easy. God makes it easy. We make it hard. We make it a whole question of, is this me? Is this you? Just whether it's you or the Lord, re-examine those things. Like, I love this show. It's kind of popping up in my brain right now while we're talking about this. Should I look at that again? And that's it.
And I think just like, also not to neglect, like entertainment can be good for the sake of entertainment as well. God loves when you paint a beautiful picture, and it doesn't need to be a picture of Jesus and the cross, but art for the sake of art can be beautiful. And I think the same thing is 100% true for entertainment. That, you know, if you're passionate about creating film, if you're writing stories, like you mentioned, you're writing a book, like just for the sake of, God has given us an imagination. God has given us ideas and
creating.
And if you're looking for entertainment that's going to be worthwhile, you will find it if you're going with the Lord on it. Even don't be discouraged if you're looking through Netflix and you're like, can't watch that, can't watch that, can't watch that. You know, don't think of it that way, but to seek out the gold for sure, because it is there.
100%. And I even remember, because I also needed to stop listening to some music a few years ago. Like I would listen to terrible music, and then I had a conversation with someone who said that, you know, as they started feeling kind of the conviction of the Holy Spirit to stop listening to certain artists, certain songs that they loved, like they would ask God, like, Lord, I want to surrender this music, but please show me new cool artists, give me new songs that I can listen to that I enjoy. And this person said, like, they would go on Spotify and they would all of a sudden find these awesome songs, which were like, they felt like God kind of replaced the old music with new, even better music. Yeah. Same thing with entertainment. Just ask God, Lord, I love this show. Please just introduce me to stuff that's better for me to watch.
I mean, I don't know if you're allowed to. I guess we've already been mentioning movies, so I can just do it. But it's funny, like, the movies that you then end up finding that you enjoy even more, I feel, after this process. You feel like, oh, this is awesome. So recently, actually, you and we went to see a movie with a friend, and that one was called The Hail Mary Project. So good. Loved that movie. It's like, if I had a list of top 10, it'd probably go up there because it was so well done, beautifully executed. Storyline was so interesting, so kind of
funny,
new feeling, funny,
new feeling.
So good. And I didn't feel like I was being preached at with a value system of the world. I just felt like this is just an amazing story. And it comes from a book as well. But so maybe the storyline has benefited from that. But I think genuinely, when I watched that, I enjoyed it so much more than I can say, because it felt like, oh, thank the Lord. There is quality content. It's just sometimes you feel like you have to do the work of saying no to certain things, but it's okay. You'll find those things.
Come on. Wow. I hope you are left with some good thoughts.
Yeah.
And again, we're just rooting for everyone who wants to grow closer to God. I mean, that's why we're doing this podcast.
Yes, we are.
And I'm challenged as always. It is, I've mentioned before, but like, it's almost a bit tiring to do podcast episodes every week.
You get challenged so much.
You just,
That's true.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good. And God, He knows me, He knows you, and He just wants to walk with you and show you new sides of His character. So yeah, have a blessed week, and thank you for listening.